The company I had worked for many years was heavily impacted by the bankruptcy of a major client. In such a situation, the president let out a heavy sigh in front of all the employees. $3 million short, and we go bankrupt. The faces of the employees were painted with despair. After thinking for a moment, I quietly said, "Is $3 million enough?" The truth was, I had a secret I hadn't told anyone yet. My name is Robert Smith. I'm 43 years old and have been working at a factory manufacturing car engine parts for many years. Personally, I consider myself an average worker, but there's a reason I've stayed with one company for so long. It's a simple story. I love the employees and the president of this company. However, if I were to say this honestly, I'd get a contrarian response like, "Why would you like an uneducated guy like me? You're strange." And that's what makes me feel comfortable here. Coming to this rural factory, you must have had a hard time. You're a college graduate. You could have gone to a better company. Even our president, President Williams, talks like this. I had to laugh and deny it every time. There was a reason why the employees and the president would say such things to me. I wasn't a local. I had come all the way from a big city. Moreover, I graduated from a well-known, prestigious university. On top of that, I had even studied abroad for a year. With such a background, I was often asked this question during the interview. Why would someone with your credentials come here? At that time, I answered, because I love cars. In reality, this was a lie. Back then, all I wanted was to leave my family home. I'm the eldest of 3 brothers. I thought I treated my younger brothers equally, but my brother David, who is 1 year younger than me, always saw me as a rival. Now I understand that he was jealous because, as the eldest son, I received special attention and care from our parents. However, back then, I was simply terrified of the way my own brother looked at me. "Mom and Dad don't like you. I overheard them talking about it. See, I'm smarter than you." No child can hear such nonsense and not be hurt, especially at just 10 years old. I got praised by Dad again. Did you get scolded again? That's why Mom and Dad say you're unwanted. Sure, David had good grades and was athletic, so he often got praised by our parents. In contrast, I was often told to be careful, and my self-esteem kept diminishing. As a child, I didn't understand that being the eldest meant I was being raised more strictly. Moreover, I was increasingly blamed for mischief I didn't commit. "You're getting scolded. It was me who did it." I would always realize it was David's doing from his laughter. Such daily occurrences eventually convinced me that our parents don't love me. Even when I was laughing or being praised, I believed they secretly wanted me gone. Still, my younger brother, who was 4 years younger than me, wasn't swayed by David and adored me, and I desperately tried to meet our parents' expectations. I studied hard and managed to graduate from a reasonably prestigious middle school and high school, eventually entering a well-known university. But even then, David would interfere, whispering, "It doesn't matter how hard you try," dampening my joy and sense of achievement. Our parents were happy for me and praised my efforts. But the next year, when David got into the same university, he said, "If I can get in, there's no way you couldn't." I even had better entrance exam scores, and Dad and Mom are happier than they were with you. He sneered as he said it. At first, I enjoyed college, but seeing David on campus quickly soured my experience. Every time we met, he would make snide remarks, and I had to stay on guard to avoid him. The pressure of being compared to him was immense during classes and exams. Eventually, I had a huge argument with my father and stormed out of the house during my junior year. My worried mother co-signed the lease for an apartment, and it was my first time living alone. I was amazed at how comfortable it was, and I wanted to stay far from my family for a while. As a result, I got a job at my current company. But I didn't cut ties completely. I go home for holidays and keep in touch with my mom and youngest brother regularly. David still calls me a loser whenever we meet, so I don't stay long. However, unlike before, I don't consider myself a loser for my current job, no matter what David says. To be honest, my claim during the interview that I wanted the job because I loved cars was a complete lie. I knew that taking a mediocre job would give David an upper hand, so I chose to become a craftsman instead of a salaryman. But as I worked hard at the factory, I genuinely became interested in cars. Moreover, this company also makes engine parts for ships, albeit in small numbers, and I got so hooked that I started studying it on my own. I was proud to be making the essential heart of something that drives. I believed, without any real reason, that I would work with the current employees and President Williams until I retired. But life rarely goes as planned. Hey, everyone, gather around. During the lunch break, the factory, usually filled with the loud sounds of big machines, was silent. In the quiet, the president called the employees, who were resting in the break room, to gather. His usual calm demeanor was gone, replaced with tension. The employees, sensing something was off, looked at each other and then gathered around the president. Listen calmly, A Industries has gone bankrupt. What, A Industries? Despite the president's warning, the break room buzzed with chatter. Industries was our biggest client. They always placed large orders, making each transaction significant. Recently, they had started manufacturing ships, strengthening their relationship with us. Everyone thought we were secure because of this. We don't have all the details yet, so this is just a guess. But it seems like their new shipbuilding venture didn't go well. The large investment likely caused a rapid decline. No way. Everyone exchanged glances. As you all know, we just delivered ship engine parts recently and haven't collected the receivables yet. Moreover, considering we won't get any more orders from A Industries, honestly, our situation is quite severe. No one said a word. The meeting ended, and everyone returned to their breaks, but it was clear from their faces that no one could relax. In the afternoon, we tried to focus on our work, but as soon as the workday ended, everyone was talking about A Industries again. I left the office that day with a heavy heart. The next day, the president, looking more somber than ever, said, "Unfortunately, we might be done for." No one was surprised by these words anymore. They just hung their heads and stared at the floor. We've been operating on a shoestring budget. Considering our payables and the loans from financial institutions, there's no way we can continue. Unable to bear the silence, I spoke up. How much do we need to keep the business running? Yeah, if cutting bonuses would help, we could even wait a month for our paychecks. One employee offered. He had a wife and children. He likely thought that sacrificing his pay and bonus was better than trying to find a new job at almost 50. However, the president shook his head. $3 million. And with that, he dashed any faint hope. We're not just short $3 million now. Even if we sell various machines and downsize the business, we would still be $3 million short. $30 million, an astronomical figure. It was beyond the level of cutting bonuses or delaying paychecks, so everyone fell silent. But no one cared more about this company or wanted it to survive more than the president. He muttered weakly, almost to himself, "Short $3 million and we go bankrupt." At that moment, a spark of determination ignited in my chest. Until now, I had always compared myself to my brother, developing a strong aversion to competition and comparison. But now, a fighting spirit ignited within me. I had never felt such a burning desire before. And before I knew it, I spoke up. Is $3 million enough? What? The employees and even the president looked puzzled. I took a deep breath and began to speak. I've never mentioned this to anyone, but my father is the CEO of B Holdings. The employees immediately started murmuring. The president, too, looked at me with wide eyes. B Holdings, that's a major corporation. Yes, my father is the head of B Holdings, a well-known large corporation. At 65, he still actively manages a large number of employees. But even if you're the son of a big company's CEO, you can't just get $3 million like that, right? Of course, you're right. It's not a charity, so he wouldn't give out such a large sum out of kindness alone. Especially since my father and I have been on bad terms ever since I declared I wouldn't take over the company. What? Then nothing changes, does it? An employee couldn't hide his disappointment. But I calmly explained. That's why our company should become a subsidiary of B Holdings. There were puzzled reactions from the employees, unfamiliar with the term subsidiary. In other words, a buyout. The advantage of becoming a subsidiary, depending on the parent company's management policies, is that the workplace won't change significantly, nor will the business operations. It would be far better than the company going under. It seemed other employees felt the same way. The president nodded at my suggestion. Indeed, B Holdings does have an automotive division. Yes, so we should approach them. If they acquire our company along with its debts, we could survive. But can it really work that smoothly? The president showed some hesitation, but an employee, looking hopeful, said, "That's where Robert, as the son, can ask his father for help." No, as I mentioned earlier, my father and I are not on good terms, so it won't be that easy. Instead, I need to appeal to him as a businessman, not as a father. If he sees the profit potential, he'll agree. When I explained this, the employees' faces tightened, realizing this wouldn't be easy. They weren't elated, but no one was in despair either. I encouraged them. First, let's come up with the strongest plan. We don't have much time. In addition to our daily work, we began preparing for a last-ditch effort to save the company. Surprisingly, getting an appointment for the discussion, which I thought would be the first hurdle, was relatively easy. Of course, we had to travel to the city and adjust to their schedule, but that was fine. Hiring a mediator to help us paid off. If an unknown small company suddenly asked a big company's CEO to buy us out, we'd likely be turned away at the door. So we decided it was worth spending our own money to hire a professional for that part of the process. Things had gone smoothly up to this point, but I had no idea how my father or David felt about me being one of the representatives. While all our communication was businesslike over the phone, I couldn't read their true feelings. I was nervous as the day approached. Entering a towering building, I approached a reception desk unlike anything we had at our workplace and stated my identity and purpose. All of this was unfamiliar to me. It was David who came down to the first floor to meet us. "Welcome. Thank you for coming all this way." While smiling politely, David leaned in and whispered to me, "Did you come all this way just to embarrass yourself? Nice try, loser." Wearing a nice suit, expensive cologne, and looking down on me, David seemed quite pleased with himself. He clearly looked down on me and the president in our cheap suits. But my focus today wasn't on David. Ignoring his words, we walked into the conference room. Inside were senior executives and, of course, my real father, President Smith. A wave of nervousness washed over me. However, seeing President Williams even more visibly nervous than I was, helped me relax a bit. President Williams, well-liked and well-connected in our rural community, had never done a presentation before at the age of 58. David had a mocking smile on his face, but my father did not. "Thank you for coming all this way. Please have a seat." He greeted his head politely, even smiling at us. It was the first time I faced him as a business partner. With a strange feeling, I began the presentation. I distributed the materials and explained our business, main clients, revenue, and the benefits of becoming a subsidiary as concisely as possible. However, the reactions from David, my father, and the executives were lukewarm. It wasn't a complete dismissal, But we needed something more to truly capture my father's interest. I glanced at President Williams. He returned my look with a strong, determined gaze. I nodded slightly. President Smith, you have an interest in the shipbuilding industry, don't you? This was our last card to play. The moment I mentioned shipbuilding, my father's eyebrows twitched. That's correct. The market is currently expanding, and most of the parts procurement and employment are domestic. It's essentially a community-based industry. Yes, that's true. Our strength lies in our existing know-how and our local network. We have connections with various local businesses across different industries, and you can make all of that yours. The biggest advantage of an acquisition is that you gain an existing business with established know-how and machinery. While we could have focused solely on automotive parts, I knew my father had an interest in shipbuilding. I decided to leverage that interest. I explained our equipment and costs related to ship parts manufacturing and shared some of our expertise. President Williams and I answered the executive's questions and comments patiently and sincerely. My father listened more intently, looking at the documents with a serious expression. We believe our company can significantly contribute to your future profits. With that, I concluded the presentation. No matter what anyone said, no matter if David called me a loser, I took pride in my work. I hope that was conveyed. David didn't say anything mocking, but his smirk spoke volumes about his feelings. But I no longer let David's behavior unsettle me. My father scrutinized the documents, contemplating my words, and then solemnly spoke. This is not a bad proposal. Let's move forward positively. What? Before we could even breathe a sigh of relief, David's voice rang out. He stood up abruptly, fists clenched, protesting to our father. Dad, what are you thinking? Standing beside him, David's voice was a mixture of shock and disbelief. He never expected our father to agree to the acquisition. Have you forgotten? He betrayed you by choosing to work in the countryside. He's just trying to use us. You stay quiet. Dad? Call me president in the office. I'm your boss. Silenced by those words, David bit his lip in frustration. Our strict father clearly drew the line between personal and professional matters. That's why he listened to me. I said I'd consider the subsidiary proposal because it would benefit our company. Nothing else matters. Truly, I don't know how to thank you. I am deeply grateful. President Williams greeted deeply, expressing his gratitude before I could. The discussion progressed smoothly, and we scheduled our next meeting. David watched in stunned silence. Finally, this is from me as a father. Just as we were about to rise, my father spoke. I was taken aback. Robert, I thought you refused to take over the company out of sheer rebellion against us. I may have been too harsh then, but I see now that you understood our company well. You weren't just trying to use us. I nodded. I was tired of being compared, expected to perform, or completely disregarded. It wasn't out of disdain for my father or the company that I rebelled. I regularly kept up with the company's news through magazines and newspapers. Sometimes my father's interviews appeared in general magazines, and I read them whenever I saw them. I had remembered him saying, I want to challenge the shipbuilding industry someday. I had always thought about working with my father's companies someday. Then he would see how passionately I dedicate myself to this job. It would prove that I wasn't just aimlessly working after running away from him. I've always been dissatisfied with you. I'm terribly sorry for being such a disappointing son. No, that's not it. It's because you never recognized your own abilities and always belittled yourself. I was taken aback by his unexpected words. I tried various ways to boost your confidence, but in hindsight, that might have been counterproductive. None of it seemed to resonate with you, and eventually we fought, and you left. But I've never once thought you were a failure. You're much more capable than you think. I couldn't find the words to respond. I'd always believed I was being belittled and compared to David. Though with time and distance, I started to realize that it wasn't necessarily the case. There was still some doubt in my mind. But my father had always thought much more highly of me than I had realized. Yes, as your father said, Robert is incredibly talented and an invaluable asset to our company. We will continue to take good care of him, so please rest assured. Hearing President Williams's words, my father smiled slightly and nodded. President Williams, please take care of my son. It was the first time I saw my father, who runs a large corporation, greeting to the president of a small company. With our discussions finalized, our company successfully became a subsidiary of B Holdings. Although the name changed, the employees, salaries, and work location remained the same, and our benefits even improved. The employees were enthusiastic and worked harder than ever, seizing this new opportunity. But then, something unbelievable happened to me. Hey, what did you tell Dad? One day, David called me, yelling from the moment I answered. I had no idea what he was talking about. What are you talking about? Don't mess with me. You must have told him something. David's furious voice echoed in my ear, and I had to hold the phone away slightly. Please, explain it to me. I don't have time for this. David let out an exasperated sigh, but seemed to hold back. Then, he spoke in an unusually weak tone. I've been demoted. What? I couldn't believe what I just heard and asked again. David was supposed to be the executive director. He told me that since I wasn't taking over the company, it was common knowledge that he would be the next president. Yes, I've been demoted. I don't get it at all. Are you serious, you? Damn it. Did you say something to Dad? David seemed to suspect me, but I hadn't said anything. In fact, since reconnecting with my father, I had forgotten all the inferiority complex I once felt towards David. There must be a reason for the demotion. What did Dad say? He mentioned something about my attitude towards my subordinates, but that's ridiculous. Just because I raised my voice or took out my anger on things, they're blowing it out of proportion. So you yelled at people and took out your anger on things? That's textbook harassment. What are you talking about? I'm the next president? Do you know how much I've had to endure to get to this position? I was at a loss for words. There was no point in arguing with David. He wouldn't listen to someone he looked down on. It was Mike, our third brother, who took over David's position as executive director. Unlike David, Mike looked up to me and shared information readily. Apparently, besides harassment, David had been fabricating rumors about competent individuals to hinder their promotions. When David said he had endured many hardships, he meant how much scheming he had done. A few years after this dramatic turnaround, Mike eventually became the CEO of B Holdings. We continued to maintain good relationships within the company. Our subsidiary thrived with every employee working diligently and sincerely. Man, there were times I wasn't sure we'd make it, but it's almost been 5 years since then. I'm really grateful to you, Robert. Hearing this after work, while everyone was packing up to leave, made me a bit embarrassed, and I scratched my head. I just wanted to give back, President Williams. You and everyone else taught me so much. Come on, don't get all fancy on us. You won't get anything from us. The employees laughed heartily. I joined in the laughter. Hey, how about we all go out for drinks to celebrate our 5-year anniversary? It's a special occasion, and it's on me. Really, President, you're so generous. The atmosphere suddenly became lively. Everyone's eyes were shining with excitement, as if they hadn't just finished a full day of work. Thank you, President. We'll take you up on that. Robert is our biggest contributor. Order some good beer. All right, let's get the most expensive beer by the bottle. You guys can settle for the cheap stuff. We exchanged banter and laughed together. It took a long time, but now I can proudly say, this is where I belong.